welcome to Crossover. I especially want to welcome those that are online. One of our home churches in the state of West Virginia messaged me a few minutes ago, and give it up for West Virginia, whether you're from there or not. Amen. For those that are watching in other places, every week somebody's writing me or I'll catch somebody and they said, I've not seen you face to face in a long time, but I sure thank God for Crossover and for your words of encouragement. And so I do pray that those in the room and those that are in other places realize that, man, we're God's family and that God has a purpose and we have much to be thankful for, don't we? How many's thankful? Amen. I read a cool post. It's kind of funny that it was on Friday, how everybody gathered on Thursday to just remember what they're thankful for. And then on Friday, they just got out in the crazy and duked it out in shopping centers. And there's a lot of truth to that. But my prayer is that though this is our last message in the series, I really pray that thankfulness and gratitude will just continue to go before us and lead us. And, I'm always, hopefully, I think this is true. Normally, I'm practicing what I'm preaching, and this series really came at a good time for me. I hope it came at a good time for you. It was really, I have to give the credit to our staff because one of the members just said, I really sense that, we need to be taught how to be thankful and how to really, in all the different things that are really trying to scream for our attention, for us to really understand the power of Thanksgiving. And it's been good for me because I don't know if you've realized it or not, but you can easily spot someone who is thankless. And you can also spot those that are thankful. The thankless ones, you can easily see them because they thank less and they complain more. Y'all know some of them, don't you? You just spent a few days with some of them. They make more of themselves and they think less of others. And I don't want that to mark my life. True before God, I pray that I have an attitude of gratefulness and that people enjoy being around me. And I think the reason we can spot those that are thankful is that their talk is full. It's encouraging, full of praise and gratitude and joy. And man, they just have good attitude. So, I want you to be making your way to the book of Hebrews, chapter number 12. And it's, today's title has been just kind of stirring for about 2 months now. And it's creating a culture of thankfulness. And how many knows that there's a lot of influencers? There's people, and it was kind of hard for me to wrap my mind around how there's actually people that are paid to be influencers. So it's like, I want to market this bottle of water, so I'll send these little goodie bags to influencers, and they can get on social media and talk about how wonderful this water is, and it boosts sales. Well, guess what? All of us, every one of us, whether you're online or in this room, we're influencers. And we're either influencing gratitude or we're influencing thanklessness. And I really do pray that we would just be gripped by the power and the presence of God. Over this series, we started out the first week, and this was a good reminder for me how we're to enter the gates with thanksgiving and into his courts with praise, and how the key or the password to entering in is thank you, having a thankful heart. And I think the thing that I've been reminded of is anytime I recognize that I'm having a bad day, it's probably because my focus has turned from being towards God and I started looking at things around me. And so, but I realize that we're to give thanks in everything. Not for everything. And that's helped me, and hopefully it's helped you that there's some things that man, we don't like, but we just have to turn it back to God. There's a power that I've discovered, and I talked about it a little bit. I shared with somebody yesterday, I wish I could go back and re-preach that message on the power of thankfulness, because I've experienced so much of it in my life in these last couple of weeks that as the enemy wants to get me off track or to just cause me to be like everybody else in the world or the majority, just empty and so forth. Man, I've discovered that when I'm mindful of it, when I remember it, if I just stop and start giving thanks to God for whatever and to Him, man, it changes and it empowers me and it helps me to live in gratitude. It affects my giving. And so today I want to talk about creating a culture of thankfulness. Look with me in Hebrews chapter 12. Somebody told me, and they reminded me in the early service, that in 2017, that this was our passage for the year, and that we really focused in for a big part of the year on Hebrews. And I want us to approach it from a little different angle today, because I believe that there's an influencer in you, and the influencer that God has placed in you is one that you can be in difficult places, but God's going to use you to be a light and to be an encouragement to those around you. And so notice what it says, beginning in verse number 1, and I'm reading from the New International Version. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, throw off everything that would hinder and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. I want you to get this visual. I was at a funeral service this week, and one of the pastors shared this passage, and he was talking about those in heaven watching and looking down on us, being that great cloud of witnesses. And that may be the case. I really believe that what the writer of Hebrews is writing is when he's referring to the cloud of witnesses, it's those that have witnessed the power and the presence and the faithfulness of God, and they've become the witness of God, their life. And so you go back and read Hebrews chapter 11. It tells us about a lot of men and women that were ordinary people like us, that because of faith in God, they overcame the lions in the lion's den. They overcame fiery furnaces. They overcame their past of harlotry. They overcame the sinfulness that had a plague and a hold on them. And by faith, they trusted God, and God counted it to them, to their credit. And so we see today that we're surrounded. And yes, those that have already lived for God and they're in heaven are witnesses. But guess what? There are some witnesses of God's faithfulness that is in this room today. There's some of you that you've walked through difficult places and you stayed faithful to God. And we've seen that. You know, it's not always the one that seems to be on top of the mountain that we learn the most from, but it's that one that, man, when you see all hell's breaking loose in their life and you're like, how do they hold up under that? Man, those are the ones I'm drawn to. You know, I found early in my ministry that I would listen to a lot of preachers that told you how to do everything right, but I was more changed by those that said, listen, let me tell you what I've done wrong that I don't want to repeat. And don't do it. And I begin to learn from others' mistakes. And so I'm telling you, people are watching your life and my life. And don't put on a mask and don't try to fake it. But find the joy of the Lord and walk in God's presence and allow others to witness, not you. It's not about people seeing us, but let them see God in you. Amen? Because guess what? It seems like recently in every book that I've been reading in the New Testament is preparing us for suffering. And some of you are already suffering. Others, guess what? You're going to get a crash course in how to suffer and suffer well. But guess what? We can make it through His grace and His mercy. I'm reminded of Psalms 23 that yea, though I walk through the valley. Thankful that we're not stuck in the valley of the shadow of death, but we get to walk through it. Man, His rod and His staff, they comfort me. And in the presence of our enemies, God sets a table before us and He anoints our head with oil. And surely goodness and mercy shall follow us all the days of our life. Guess what? There's a lot of crap that's going to try to follow you, but God's goodness and God's mercy will follow you all the days of your life. And so today, how do we become a culture of change so that people can see gratitude and thankfulness? Here's how. Verse 2, by fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and the perfecter of our faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. So consider him who endured such opposition from sinners. Before I finish this, consider him that endured such opposition. Have you seen somebody that you know that it seems like they've faced a lot of opposition? And have you noticed those that faced it with grace and goodness and strength from God? Man, those are the ones that we need to consider. Those are the ones like Jesus who endured the opposition from sinners so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. I'm telling you, I was finishing typing my manuscript this morning, and I was ministering and talking with my friend in another country, and I just said, man, I'm so encouraged this morning from God's word that if I don't get to preach the message, man, I feel like I've already had church. And the reason is our joy, listen to me, our joy isn't in a feel-good sermon. Our joy isn't in all of a sudden everything going on happens to be good. It's Christmas, so everything's going to be happy now. But our joy and our strength and our victory comes from knowing what the writer of Hebrews is telling us in this passage here. You know, the question I'm going to pose to us today, because the word is used in Hebrews chapter 12, it's found in verse number 2, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer of our perfecter of faith. Are you a pioneer or are you a settler? There's a big difference, and I'm going to contrast the two shortly. But as I think about the passage here, it reminds me of what Albert Schweitzer says. He's a French theologian, philosopher, and physician. He says, example is not the main thing in influencing others. It's the only thing. He's saying the example that you and I have to others, or the example we have from Christ, is the main thing. That more depends on your walk than your talk. In other words, people are watching you more than they're listening to you. That's probably happening right now while I'm preaching. What you practice more than what you preach, and what you do than what you say. I'm telling you, Paul wrote one of his letters. He said, these people are a letter, a testimony that's written on my heart. I don't need to write letters of commendation. Change lives are a letter that of God's goodness. And I believe that as you and I walk grateful and thankful, man, it will so impact people that are within your reach in just an incredible way. But I want you to look at something here. If you're taking notes, I want you to notice some words that in these 3 verses that just have really impacted me, that I believe that will show us how you and I, not just through a Thanksgiving or Christmas season, how to walk thankful. But man, it's going to give us the power. It's going to be the change that we need come Monday morning. Here's what he says, verse 1. Since we're surrounded by this great cloud of witnesses, he says, let us throw off everything that hinders us. So here would be the first instruction that the writer's given us. We need to throw away some stuff. We need to get rid of some stuff. And it's those things that would hinder gratitude coming into our lives. Did you know that ingratitude is really the enemy of gratitude? That if the devil, listen to me, if the devil can get you thinking negative thoughts, you forget about thankfulness, and all of a sudden you're going to begin to look at circumstances, and if he can continue to orchestrate negative circumstances, you're going to walk in a defeated life. But man, when we are thankful in the midst of difficulty, guess what? You can be thankful in the midst of hard times. It's the thankfulness that is the reminder of who really is the authority that's in charge. Man, Satan is not the ruler of your life. God is, and God is the supreme authority. And when we give thanks to him, man, in all things, give thanks to God. Man, there will be a release of the spirit of gratitude in our lives. He says, throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles us. So we're to throw off that sin that so easily entangles us. I just began to think about this, and I wrote it in my journal the other day. What are those sins that entangle me? What are the sins that entangle you? What are those thoughts? What are those actions? What are those things that just seems to entangle us? Is it that you know you're going to have to be around somebody in the next couple of days during our season of celebration, and you just feel this entangled a bunch of roots just wrapped around you because of bitterness? Or is it those thoughts? Is it the workplace? See, is it worry, anxiety, or fear? If so, throw it off. And here's why. The rest of that verse says, so that we can run with perseverance the race marked out for you. Did you know that God has a race marked out for you? And one of the things that will entangle us so quickly is when we try to run somebody else's race. We've got a series that's going to kick off in January entitled Hard Things. As a matter of fact, one of the words that's used here in Hebrews 12 is the word persevere, perseverance, and that's going to be the word for 2022. And Parker had the great idea to let's do some filming and create some moments of connection at my cost and expense, such as, hey, Pastor, why don't you run a 5K and I'll video you? Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah. Who wants to speak words of love and affirmation when I die? But no, I was thinking about that, but I thought about this. Man, how many of y'all are runners? Anybody other than Steve a runner? Oh, yeah, we got some. Yes, some. Here's what I know. If Steve and I go to run today or any day, here's the guy that he runs during his lunch. He runs sometimes for breakfast. He runs at dinner. He runs. And he ends up the same place every Sunday. See, I'm telling you, bodily exercise profiteth a little. Not really. It's biblical, but not in that context. But if I try to run his pace in his race, guess what? It's going to be really difficult. But if I run the race that has already been set out for me by God, guess what? I can run it. I can keep and the success in running it is found in the next verse. But I'm telling you, you and I can do ourselves and everybody else around us a huge, huge service by not trying to do what everybody else is doing or be who anybody else is trying to be. Man, just look to Jesus and become who he's called you to be. Become who he's called you to be. Guess what? I can preach this today, not having perfected it, but I'm becoming the man of God that he wants me to be. I can preach it with boldness and confidence, knowing that you may not be that man or woman that you want to be, and you may not be the one that you will be later, but guess what? As you are becoming more like him and less like the world, you and I will be a world changer. Here's what he says, verse 2, fixing our eyes on Jesus. So here was what I wrote in my journal the other week. We must fix our eyes off of Jesus. Take our eyes off of all the people or all the things, the stuff that surround us. I read a quote recently from John Maxwell. He says, what people see is far more important than what they hear. People do what people see, and as Maxwell says, 80% or 89% of people learn, what they learn comes through this visual stimulation, 10% through audible stimulation, and 1% through other senses. In other words, what they hear, they understand. What they see, they believe. In other words, you're more likely to be motivated by what you see in your pastor's life than what you hear on a Sunday morning. That when you go home in a family unit, that you're more convinced by what you're seeing displayed in your family than what you hear being barked out at one another. And what I'm saying is we can have a thankful attitude every day of the year when we understand that it starts by throwing off those weights, those sins that entangle us, and just fix our eyes on Jesus. Well, here's what he says. Fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer. We need to look to Jesus as the one that blazed the trail, that set the pace for us, that has marked out your race. And that's the cool thing. Man, no matter what age we are, God has a pace. He's got a situation and a place for us. And I just believe that he will enable us to do that. But verse 3, just kind of giving the highlight of what this passage is just saying, starts out with these two words, consider him. That if we're going to be thankful and create a culture of thanksgiving, that we've got to set aside all of this garbage and literally fix our eyes on Jesus, but then consider him. So to consider means to think or to ponder. In other words, we've got to think about Jesus. What happens when we think about Jesus? We grow in our faith, and we get joy. But what happens when we start to think about those things that weigh us down? What happens? You lose your joy, you become weary, you begin to lose heart, you begin to give up, you begin to burn out. I'm telling you, this is a simple trick that the enemy does to your life. He's going to get in your head and he's going to try to remind you of all the negative stuff. Why are we thinking about that? Man, we don't have to. We can take our thoughts captive, pulling down strongholds, and literally set our minds on the things above. And what we see here is when we consider him who endured all this opposition from sinners, then we will not grow weary and lose heart. So here's the question. Are you a pioneer or a settler? Jesus says that he was the pioneer. He's the author, the finisher of our faith. And so the other morning I was sitting at my coffee table and I just finished having breakfast and I had a thought. Every now and then I have a thought. And every now and then they're good thoughts. Most of the other time they're not. I don't write my bad thoughts down. Not just because they would incriminate me at some point, but the devil can remind me. I don't have to try to remember those things. So I wanted to write down these good things. And here's what I begin to think about the difference of being a pioneer or a settler. You know, there's a huge difference between pioneers and settlers. There's a huge difference between Jesus, which is the supreme pioneer, supreme authority, and any other who came after him trying to be like him. One of the coolest passages I've read in a long time in the Old Testament was describing Lucifer and how he was kicked out of heaven and what his plot and his goals were. And it's amazing that the morning I was reading about that I got to the bottom of my devotion and I was like, wait a minute, I have no idea what I just read. Went back and started the second time. I'm reading along, and before long, my mind's just wanting. Y'all ever experience that? You're just praying or studying, and all of a sudden, on the third time, and I'm like, I am not going to think of nothing else. And so I'm reading through this, and I got to the bottom of it, and I was like, no wonder my mind kept just drifting along. Man, Satan didn't want me to be reminded of how he was dethroned and he was a created being, and he was removed, and he envies God. He wants all that God is. And so the difference today, as I'm reading and I was thinking about this, the difference of a pioneer and a settler. Here's something about pioneers. Number one, they go where others have not gone before. So I want you to think about, I'm talking about a spiritual context. If we're going to be cultural influencers in a day, in a generation where there's all kinds of stuff floating out here, I believe the pioneer, the spiritual pioneer, the follower of Jesus is going to go where nobody else is going. They take paths less traveled. The pioneer, they leave new trails for others to follow. In other words, they begin to make new paths and with the hopes others will follow. They're always up for a new challenge. I think we've got some pioneers in this room, don't we? They will not settle. Sometimes I get uncomfortable around a pioneer, although I desire to be a pioneer. You know why I get uncomfortable? Because I start settling and my mediocrity is confronted by their desire to be all that God has called them to be. Just saying. Pioneers go where others have not gone, take paths less traveled, leave new trails for others to follow, always up for a new challenge, will not settle, and they create memories. Life is one memory and another one and another one and another one. And think about this. Think about the memories that you and I can make when we help somebody that's lost in bitterness and suffering and loneliness. And they become a follower. It may look like they're following us, but they're really not. They're following Jesus. They're following to find the joy, to find the thanksgiving and the happiness. And what I'm saying, I'm telling you, I've practiced this. I've tried it out. If you're having a bad moment and you can make your way back to finding out how to have a thankful heart, I'm telling you, that thankfulness will break all that other garbage off. Selflessness or selfishness makes you think, oh, I want this, I want that, I need this, I deserve that, I'm entitled. No, we deserve hell. Man, thankful. But here's what describes the settler. Now keep in mind the pioneer. But the settler, they rely on the paths that others have left behind. You know, this one's free. Matter of fact, most settlers are content taking any path as long as they feel like they're going somewhere. Doesn't matter where. As long as it's close to home. And as long as it has Wi-Fi so I can stay in touch with what's really happening in the world. And as long as I've got a place that's going to be comfortable, I'm willing to take the path by somebody else. Settlers, they occupy what has already been experienced by others. They trade their hiking boots for flip-flops because they plan to stay a while. Settlers establish roots. And where the pioneer, remember the pioneer, they're creating memories. The settler, they dream about the good old days. Now, there's some of those traits that's in all of us, but I want to ask you this question. What do you want to be? Do you want to be the one in your community, in your circle, in your family, in your workplace, that is in the midst of mediocrity or normal worldly junk? Do you want to just settle in and talk about the good old days, or do you want to head out and make a path where others can find joy? Do you want to be the one that influences somebody to say, man, in my house can be different? You know what? I feel like I'm talking to the choir. Some of you have influenced friends that have taken that influence of Jesus back to their families, and their family has been saved, salvaged, turned around. Why? Instead of it being divisiveness and negativity all the time, man, they brought hope back. I overheard a conversation last night. My wife and a very, 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 well, I'll just tell you, it's my daughter-in-law. Daughter-in-law says, you know what, in this thankful season, man, I want to be a thankful, grateful person. And I want to be careful about associating and spending all my time with negative people. Now, don't misunderstand. It's not that Christians aren't around negative people, but we're around negative people because God's placed us in places so it doesn't remain negative, so it doesn't remain dark and saltless. But I think about it, man, some of y'all have impacted my life. I've seen some of you go through hard places. In fact, this week, going through a hard place with another family, I called somebody and said, listen, I'm trying to help somebody navigate, and I know you've been there. What would you share with me? How can I help this family? And guess what? It was life-giving. And my prayer is that as others have impacted me and to help me to see there's a difference in settling versus, man, go out and make a difference in somebody's life. I want to wrap up, and I'm going to give you these 4 challenges, and it's right out of Hebrews. The band can make their way on out. How do we create a culture of thanksgiving? 1, it comes from verse 1. Deal with your sin. I've got to deal with my sin. Throw off everything that hinders you from having a thankful heart. Get rid of sin. How do I do that, Pastor? Turn. The word is repent. Just turn from it and forsake it. Literally, leave it behind and quit looking back. Second thing is found in the latter part of verse 1 is as you cast off those restraints, run your race. And I want to encourage you, God's marked the race out for you. And again, the fastest way for you to lose your race is to try to run mine. And God has a race for you. God has a place and a people for you to influence. And literally, that influencer is your influence on them to look to Jesus, because verse 2 says, keep your eyes on him. Man, see, regret looks back. Think about this, and we're going to close. Regret looks back. Fear looks around. Worry looks in. But faith looks up. I need to say it again. I do. I need to be reminded. Faith looks up. See, regret looks back. We probably look back more times than we realize we do. But fear begins to look around, and it's going to paralyze you as literally that trailblazer. You're going to start to settle. You're going to start to, instead of making that new memory by trusting God, you're going to start thinking about all the things that God used to do, your old testimony. But worry looks in. What will people think? Or maybe you even think, I've never faced what they face. But faith looks up, fixing your eyes on Jesus. Here's the last thing. When verse 3 says, consider him, this is just what I was writing and just kind of pondering early this morning is, man, remember Jesus. If you don't remember anything else about this message, in your day, your typical day, whether it's first thing in the morning or sometime throughout the day, you begin to find yourself stressed, worried, fearful. Man, stop right there and consider Jesus. Remember Jesus, the author, the finisher of your faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured all the scorning and shame to make it to the cross for us. So remember him. Here's my question today. Are you going to be a pioneer or a settler? Oh, don't worry. The devil's trying to block. This I know. It wasn't my mic. It was one of the others. Here's what I know. Perfect illustration. Thank you, devil. In this room, there's country music, Christmas music, all kinds of praises, cussing. It's all around us. I choose joy. I choose Jesus. He's the author. He's the ultimate trailblazer. He's gone where nobody else could go. Satan's envious. And what he wants to do is distract you so that you don't go, so that you just settle. So that you live a life of a settler that's just saying, well, good enough's good enough. Man, send him to hell by just thanking God. God is so wonderful. In the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God. And the Word was God. And the Word took on flesh, Jesus, and came and dwelt among us. Jesus modeled everything the writer of Hebrews is testifying about. He went focused on the cross so that you and I would not be focused on the penalty of the entangled sin that keeps trying to trip us up. I want you to bow with me. Is there a sin tripping you up? Man, lay it down. Forsake it. Confess it. Today, do you desire for thankfulness and gratitude to lead you instead of discouragement and worry and bitterness? Well, today you have a choice. Because Jesus was the ultimate pioneer, you too can follow him and become a pioneer and not a settler. It starts with your decision today. What are you going to do with Jesus? Will you allow God to influence your life to quit settling so that you can influence a brand new culture? May this world be so changed by what God does in this moment right here today. Let's stand and let's worship him.
Hi, I'm Amanda Austin. My husband is Daniel Austin here at Crossover. He's one of our deacons. We have two girls, Alexi, who is 11, and Aubrey, who is 6. I've been at Crossover since 1997. I actually met Daniel in the youth group here. We were high school sweethearts, and we've been together for 21 years. I am a school librarian. I've been doing that for about 10 years. I work in Jamestown, and so obviously I love books. That's what I love to do in my free time. The single greatest book ever written, I would have to say, of course, is the Bible. But when it comes to fun reading, my favorite book of all time is The Giver, which is actually a children's book. All right, so last Sunday we had our family Thanksgiving dinner together, and it was such a fun time for fellowshipping and getting together. We just want to thank everyone for, of course, bringing the yummy desserts and helping set up and clean, and it was just a wonderful time to spend together. Parents' Night Out is coming up on Friday, December 3rd. It will be from 5:30 to 8:30. Kids are welcome to wear their Christmas pajamas, and dinner will be provided. We need you to go online and sign up today because there are limited spaces available. Join us on Sunday, December 5th for the Children's Christmas program. It will be at 9 a.m. and also at the 11 a.m. service. If you can't make this in person, then please join us online for the 11 o'clock service. Please come out and donate blood with us on Tuesday, December 7th for our annual blood drive. I'm so excited about this because this is an event I plan every year, and this is actually our first winter blood drive. It is recommended that you make an appointment. You can make an appointment with me after the service, or you can go online to Red Cross's website to make it yourself. You are, of course, welcome to walk in. It is from 3 to 7:30 in the fellowship hall, Tuesday, December 7th. Please remember that only about 30% of adults are able to donate, and we want you to be one of those people. Your blood donation can save up to 3 people's lives. With this upcoming blood drive, I'm very excited because the donation that I will be giving will bring me up to 2 gallons. That's 2 of these. I've been donating blood since I was 18, so for almost 20 years I've been donating, and I'm almost at a big landmark. So please join me on Tuesday, December 7th. If you like cookies, then ladies, come join us on Saturday, December 11th. For our cookie exchange. It will be from 9:30 to 11. Please see the website to register. You'll need to bring 3 dozen cookies and your recipe to share. If you have any questions, please see Tana or visit the website, but don't forget to register. All right, so you might have noticed as you walked in today that there are lots of opportunities in the foyer for you to look at. If you haven't looked at those, make sure you take a look at those on your way out. You can also pick up one of these with a shopping list on it. We're asking that all donations be brought in by Sunday the 12th so that we can come together as a church on the 14th from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock to pack those bags and boxes and get them ready to bless those individuals. Please join us on Christmas Eve on December 24th from 5 o'clock p.m. to 6 o'clock p.m. for our Christmas Eve service. On Sunday, December 26th, we will have no in-person services, so please join us online at 11 a.m. Thank you for joining us today at church. We've enjoyed seeing your faces. Thank you for joining us online, and we hope you have a wonderful, blessed week. Please join us on Christmas Eve, the December 24th. Oh wait, I messed up the time. Join us on Christmas Eve, December 24th from 5 to 6 p.m. Is that right? Yeah. Oh my God. See, I messed up.